Welcome to the WinEH podcast. This show is focused on empowering ranchers. Whether you're a seasoned rancher or just getting started, we'll guide you on how to use the infinite banking concept as an alternative way to finance your operations. It's a better way to think about money. Join us as we discuss planning for the future, attracting the next generation, and the art of keeping more money within the family. Here's your hosts, Winnie and Lacey.
So, Wolter, thank you so much for joining us here. You just happen to be at the same conference as we are, except you're attending the Soil and Health Grazing Conference. And this is the same conference that I actually met you at 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's kind of where it all started, I think, or where I learned a lot about it.
Yeah, learned a lot about the infinite banking concept, how to farm without the bank. Because I think for most people, like just to use your words, having to sometimes deal with the bank can bug the shit out of people.
Yeah.
just because of like the amount of physical dollars that we have to part ways with, right? Like not to bash banks at all, because they do provide a service, a much needed service.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you had a choice between using your own pool of capital where you get to dictate your terms and conditions versus having to do that with the bank, what would you rather do?
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm not I haven't made a lot of expenditures on bank and stuff, bought some vehicles and whatever else. But it makes you feel better knowing that there's no restrictions on taking out that loan or you don't have to go have a massive sit down to 10 grand even or whatever, right? Like for just a personal guy. Yeah, it makes it if you can just phone in and be like, and I tried it earlier this year and it worked. Yeah, it was super easy. Like just went online, said I want this much for, I was going to an auction and I was hoping to buy a vehicle. And just went online, requested the loan I wanted that I thought I was going to need. And I was like, well, that's my limit. Perfect. And a couple days later, it was in my account. And no questions asked. Yeah,
it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when it lands in your account without having to, not that you don't always want to be ready, but, we all do have our administrative duties that we have to abide by when it comes to CRA. We have to get our taxes filed. It should be filed on time, but, some of us are better at keeping up with our paperwork than others. But, in order to get a loan, right, a part of the conditions typically with the actual bank is that you have to have all those up to date. You have to kind of demonstrate that you're not owing anything to the bank, anything to CRA. You have to have like a bunch of other things kind of lined up in order to get that loan. And sometimes we're just not, just due to, not because we're, it's not a sign that we're irresponsible, but sometimes there's just so many things to juggle. Yeah. Right? It's just kind of nice to know that you have access to your own liquidity when you need it and want it.
Yeah, when you need it, and quickly. Or I thought it was quickly anyways,
Yeah. But one of the things that I'm finding, Wolter, is that either when people start to discover this, they're like totally in love with it, want to implement it right away. And some are early adopters and some aren't. And even amongst this crowd, I think there's still like a lot of people still in the process of creating the bandwidth needed to really discover what this is, to also deciding whether this is for them, right? Yeah. Like it's one or the other.
Well, and I was having a discussion even with a couple of board members from FFGA last night that haven't heard about this or haven't delved into it anyways, and just about the thoughts behind it, and just discussing it with one of the other guys, and he said, well, that's a hell of a paradigm shift. Yeah. It takes the paradigm shift and puts it in money management, I guess, instead of just looking at our soil health and other things, which is what most of the conference is based on. But take that same paradigm shift and apply it to other parts of your life, right? And money management is a huge part of that. Yeah. So I think it's important to delve in and learn as much as you can and make sense for you. Then
exactly. Well, and maybe perhaps you can share like how it makes sense for you and what made you move forward.
I go by a very simple principle. I won't claim to be very smart, so I just I go by the idea, if it ticks the boxes, if it makes sense in my mind, if I can wrap my head around it and it stays as a simple concept, I like to try it and I like to learn some more about it. So that's kind of usually what I follow. And when I start reading it, it sounds very complicated, but when you read in behind the lines a little bit, like it's a very simple concept and it's very simple to follow. And the books explain it very well. So really helped me just in my understanding of life insurance, of money management altogether, investments, everything else, which I had never spent much time in. But it was just an easy way to go. And yeah, for me, it made sense. I could see the value in having that money available while you're alive and building that death benefit at the same time and having a little security and that sort of stuff. And that's what kind of lent me this way. And I was trying to look for something else that would do something similar for me. And it seemed like I either had to put a lot of my time into managing it. And if that's what people want, then I guess that's their expertise, then that's great. But for me, that's not the case. So yeah, it was a good all-inclusive package, and it simply explained, made sense in my head. And that's how I approach a lot of my ranching strategies. If it's simple and it makes sense and it lines up with my values and beliefs, and then I dive into the literature a little more and make sure I'm semi-educated on what I'm trying to do anyways.
But it does take time. I mean, I think the more that you go down the road and use it, your imagination grows as to how it can actually apply in your life. And I think just to iterate too, I think there's a bit of confusion around people treating it in their, like, focusing it in their mind as if it's a product versus an actual process.
Yeah, well, and that's the one thing I really liked is the upfrontness that it's going to take time.
Yeah.
It's going to take time to build it. It's going to take time to learn about it, to put it into proper use. And I'm like, okay, well, at least they're upfront about it. It's not a magic bullet.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's very helpful, but it's not a magic bullet. So, and everybody's always looking for magic bullets, and they're just not out there. So the fact that the books and everything was upfront about it, that you have to put in the learning, you have to put in the time, you have to put in your own money and invest in it, made sense to me that, that's true, that's real, that's with everything. So and if you do it, you can get the best back out of it.
Awesome. And how do you feel it also matters having the after support? Because it's one thing to get educated and then get set up. Yeah. But it's then what happens afterwards, I find, right?
Well, that's huge, for sure. We're busy enough as we are. So to have Winnie and Lacey there, real quick and their team, I've talked to a lot of their team too, but to get regular updates, to get constant interactive, to be able to text or call at a moment's notice and be like, hey, like, what's going on here? What's going on there? Like when I was going to take my loan out, I got a hold of Lacey and was texting with her, and I'm just like, how do I do this? How's this going to work for me? And she's like, okay, well, since it's your first time, let's make sure you're ahead of the ball. So do it maybe a day or two earlier than you think you need to. So yeah, and I think that's huge, because as much as we think we have all the time to stay up to date, you don't. So it's good to have somebody behind you that can, at least if you get confused, there's someone to rely on and lean back on, or ask the questions that you can't get answered, and be there to help you communicate and make sure everything's running as it should.
Yeah, or even like you said, an ideas guy. Right. And so it's really great also just to have like someone to banter with back and forth, like, would this idea work here or here or here? I think that's what really matters. But I know for myself, like, especially the more that I age on in life, I also really like knowing that if I'm going to get involved with the process, I like to know that there's after support and after service. It's not like, oh, hey, thank you very much. Like, see you later. Thanks and good luck.
Yeah, it's great to get something, like you mentioned before, a product. It's great to get a product and then I get it home and it doesn't work, and you try and find some sort of support on it and there's none available, or it's incredibly difficult to get it. And that's just hasn't been the case for me anyway. So no, I appreciate that. And like I said, that's awesome. And with something it's simple like this, but there's so much to it. It's not a one-man job. So your economic future, you can't just do by yourself. You got to build a team, right? And Ranch Your Way is my team right now for my economic end of things anyways.
Yeah, that's perfect. Well, I think, just before the break ends, I want to make sure that you get some time in with all these fine folks. Just by you sitting here speaks volumes in terms of like at least hear about it. Yeah. Hear about it. And just really appreciate you and being a part of things.
Yeah, well, no, I appreciate you guys. Thank you. And it was fun to see you guys here again and catch up a little bit, and seemed like we run into into each other at events here and there. So that's awesome.
Yeah, not just like at stuff like this, but like, when you're out riding.
Yeah.
And wearing your woolies.
Yeah, that happens. Yeah. So, yeah, no, it's awesome. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah, no, thank you.
So glad you leaned in with us on the WinEH podcast. We truly hope you're feeling more informed and empowered to take another step towards optimizing your financial life. Right now, make sure you hit subscribe so you can keep growing and learning with us. Until next time, we wish you prosperity in every area of your life.